Oh look, what's that drawer at? Oh yeah, I ain't got no more left.
Oh no! There's water on there.
Welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I will show you a horror thriller film from 2020 titled The Super Deep. Spoilers. In 1984,
Oh no!
research
What the fuck?
feeling guilty for
Not, oh no!
humans without preliminary or animal testing first. Anna wants to shut down the project, but Colonel Gary Morozov stops her. Shutting down the project wouldn't help her feel any better, and the soldiers in Africa need her.
Oh
Her friend would have died for nothing.
no! You sound like that nigga, bro.
What nigga?
Friends who congratulate her for having come up with the vaccine so fast.
You know what I'm talking
Their
about.
dinner is interrupted by a phone call from
Go ahead,
Morozov,
Mario.
who needs Anna for a special mission. There's been an incident.
What you do, bro?
Some noises have been heard and people disappeared, so the station has been shut down and will be sealed in 24 hours. The head of research has been denounced for hiding data on a supposedly unknown disease, and that's why they need Anna. After Moreau promises her full credit for the discovery and the position of head of the military biological defense institute, Anna accepts and gets ready to leave.
Actually, man,
Anna arrives
get
at the
the other
station
fucking
together
tray,
with
bro.
Morozov and a group of soldiers led by
No,
Major
what
Sergeant.
is
It's sitting there on the counter.
I'm not getting up. Give
As
me
soon
that
as they
little
land,
one.
they had already encountered their first problem. A scientist has escaped the station with a grenade and
Ooh, Daisy, give me my
the
jacket.
group hears a buzzing in their ears for a few seconds, but luckily they're all fine. Anna wastes no time and goes to check the scientist's body to gather a sample while Sergei teases her for her accent, trying to guess where it's from. The sample, however, turns to dust as soon as Anna puts the lid on the test tube, and she can't help noticing a weird red glow on the body as well. One of the station's guards explains that the scientist went crazy as soon as he reached the surface, and he was so strong not even 3 soldiers could stop him. The rest of the staff is being evacuated now, so Anna goes to take samples from them before they leave. One of the men tells her everyone's dead down there and the disease is a lie, so she should run back to her family.
I wonder if
All
I
the
could.
miners seem fine, but the one with the scar saw something that scared him, so Anna just thinks it may be
Wait, look at this.
Afterward, Anna, Morozov, and the squad of soldiers enter the station with head scientist Fyodor Kuznetsov and Dr. Dmitry Grigoriev. Anna tries to ask some questions about this mysterious infection, but Grigoriev refuses to give her details because he thinks they're all here with an ulterior motive. He'll only help them enough so that they can get their sample and guarantee a safe evacuation for all the survivors. No more. Anna wants to know why he even locked up the survivors in the first place, but Grigoriev doesn't answer that either. The group makes it to the elevator, where Grigoriev has to be careful when imputing the access code because getting it wrong 3 times makes the elevator crash as a security measure. Thankfully, he gets it right on the 3rd try, so the party begins descending into the deepest man-made hole in the world.
What? That's just nasty.
The brakes don't respond, so Grigoriev
That shit nasty.
pressurizes the elevator and puts on an oxygen mask while the rest of the group passes out. When they wake up a few moments later, Grigoriev has left with the elevator key. It seems they've made it to the facility's resort, which is the area the staff lives in most of the time. The main research level is even lower, and there's a second elevator that can take them there, but they can't activate it without the key. This area used to be crowded at all times, but now they find only 2 remaining staff members, engineer Nikolai and Dr. Kira Vitalyevna, who were left behind during the initial evacuation. Kira takes them to the lab so Anna can take
You better
samples
drink
from
that
both
shit.
under the microscope, confirming neither of them is infected. It seems Grigoriev had it all planned, and they were left in this area on purpose because it's clean from any possible signs of the disease. So they'll need to look for a proper
It's gonna
source
say
elsewhere.
microphone disconnect.
Speaking of Grigoriev, he reveals himself to Anna to ask her to take the team back to the surface through the shafts and save themselves while they can, because people should always be the priority. Anna calls the soldiers to capture him, but before they can reach him, Grigoriev escapes using the elevator, only leaving a bloodstain on the door behind. They decide to send a group of soldiers led by Gorov into the shaft, which they need to force open because Grigoriev has sealed it up. While the soldiers
Y'all
put on
has to
protective
go
suits
into
to withstand the
motherfucking
incredibly high
restaurant.
temperatures of the lower level, the shaft doors suddenly open on their own, revealing lab assistant Olga.
The heat to reach them. The soldiers rescue her and take her to the lab, then go down the shaft. Before starting the checkup, Anna asks Olga some questions, but she remembers nothing of what happened down there. She's also burning with fever, even though she says she's cold. When Anna takes off her gown, she makes a disturbing discovery. It's covered with disgusting mold-like growths, which Olga claims don't hurt, not even when Anna makes a cut to take a sample. While the soldiers report having found some kind of life in the lower level, Anna puts the sample under the microscope and discovers it's a cellular parasite, some highly virulent form of mold. Fungi and mold are the least studied forms of life, and this one is unknown, so that's enough for Morozov to end this operation and start heading back. Nikolai begins working on the elevator system to force it to come back, which will take over an hour. Sergei tries to contact his team again, but they seem to be in trouble at the sight of something dangerous and don't answer their walkie-talkies anymore. At that moment, Grigoriev contacts them through the speakers and tells them he had hoped they would escape through the shafts, so now they leave him no choice. Grigoriev proceeds to set off a bomb to seal them all within the facility as he asks for forgiveness, and Anna is reminded of her own guilt related to the vaccine when the area starts shaking around her because of the explosion. In the lab, Olga's body begins to glow and she slowly loses control, blowing up the glass and attacking Kira. Meanwhile, Nikolai discovers that the explosion damaged the pressure pump and will cause the facility to collapse within an hour. He wants to find a way to get out and shows no care for the soldiers trapped in the lower levels, earning him a punch from Sergei. However, Morozov agrees that going back for those soldiers is too dangerous, so they'll be leaving through the shafts. Sergei goes with Anna to the lab to retrieve Olga and they find a very unpleasant surprise. The entire place is covered with mold, and Olga is half melted to the floor but still alive.
And my
On the other
microphone
side of the
won't
door, Morozov doesn't care that Anna is surrounded by contamination without protection and orders her to take samples anyway.
I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's not part of the movie.
It's your baby nut.
That ain't no baby
It's
blood.
not.
That's regular.
Shut up. I was just
Man, shut
playing.
your ass up, man. What you gonna do?
Your space,
Yes.
your
Oh,
moments.
shit.
Download RGX now.
It hurt. It's
Oh, that's your
sensitive.
too. My bad. You right. My bad. I'm like, bro, I tapped you, bro. What the fuck is you talking about?
I made it, didn't I?
I made it.
When she
didn't
and
I?
Sergei come closer though, Olga begins releasing a cloud of spores, so Sergei runs out of the room and Anna steps back and grabs a mask to avoid breathing them in. That's how she comes across Kira, who has been infected and mutated like Olga, and she dies when her bones suddenly poke out. Anna
Oh.
tries to leave the room and has another guilt-associated hallucination when she slips, but this allows her to find a fire extinguisher. She uses it to clean the air around her so she can open the door without the mold escaping, and after closing it again, she asks Nikolai to use the extinguisher on her body to disinfect her. Afterward, Anna goes to check on Sergei, but it's too late. He's already infected and has lost his sight. When she tells everyone about Kira, Pyotr explains that it isn't supernatural. This mysterious mold is like the fungus that takes over an ant and makes it go back to its nest so it can release its spores and infect everyone else. Anna asks Morozov to speak in private so she can tell him about her discovery. The mold dies when exposed to cold and it's been using human bodies to survive in the upper area's permafrost. She wants to stay with Sergei to search for the last survivors while Morozov goes back to the surface and calls a rescue team, but this isn't even an option. The facility will be shut down in 5 hours. There's nobody coming. Morozov orders everyone to suit up so they can leave, but at that moment, they receive a message from Egorov asking them not to open the door even if it's for them. After a long argument, Pyotr reminds them this is their only chance at survival, so may as well open the door anyway. They send 3 soldiers down the shaft to investigate first, but 2 quickly come back after shooting at something big that tried to attack them yet they couldn't identify. The 3rd soldier also comes back without an arm, and he ends things with a knife right before the group closes the door. Whatever is in the shaft now knows they are there, so it begins slamming the door to try to get out. The group runs away and makes it to the back of the area to see the elevator finally arriving. Nikolai begins working on a way to drop it down, hoping the emergency brakes will hold. Sergei's body starts glowing and he knows he doesn't have much time left, so he decides to stay behind with his men to try to stop the mysterious entity, which has finally broken down the doors. Anna, Nikolai, Pyotr, and Morozov get in the elevator and hold tight as it begins falling down. The pressure makes it hard for Nikolai to reach the brakes lever, so Anna has to leave her seat and do it herself. Fortunately, she pulls it just in time and the elevator safely lands on the lowest lever, which is colder than they expected. All the rooms are covered with frost, and a recording from a scientist tells them he also figured out the mold is weak to the cold and the ice age must have kept it underground all these years. Sooner or later though, it'll figure out that the permafrost has an end and it could escape. This thing has already learned to melt bodies together for warmth and power. This is the reason why the group doesn't find any survivors. They're stuck on the wall in a giant melted pile of mold that has died of cold. Morozov takes the last suit and enters the 200 degrees environment to try to recover the elevator key from
What the fuck I
Grigoriev.
just came
While they
into?
wait for him, Anna asks Nikolai and Pyotr not to say anything about this mold when they return to the surface because it would bring more people to investigate, putting humanity in danger. Nikolai accepts, but Pyotr is hesitant because he had been hoping to make a big discovery that put him on the map. When Morozov takes too long to come back, Anna decides to enter the hot area next without any protection, since in theory, the human body can survive there for a few minutes. As blisters begin appearing on her body, Anna finds Morozov dead on the floor because the suit had been sabotaged by Grigoriev. At least he has the elevator key in his
This
hand,
thing
so after
sad.
seeing the mold glowing on the walls, Anna takes the key and runs back inside. Nikolai tries to help her, but Pyotr suddenly shoots his leg and demands to be given the elevator key so he can go out and get the fame he deserves for this discovery. They give him the key and Pyotr takes the second elevator with both of them, keeping them at gunpoint. When they return to the resort level, they go to the first elevator corridor to investigate, and Pyotr tries to keep Anna behind so he can get into the elevator alone. However, he's suddenly attacked by the strange entity from the shaft. It's a disgusting creature made of the infected staff members that have been melted into one organism.
Oh my
They're still
god.
alive and screaming while the creature kills Pyotr. Anna runs away and hides in the mess hall, but the creature comes after her, so she grabs a knife and enters the freezer. There she gets an idea. She takes off most of her clothes and tosses a bucket of freezing water on her body so her temperature is too cold for the mold to infect her. Then she comes out and crawls under the creature to take the elevator key from Pyotr, who has also been absorbed. Locking the doors behind her, Anna rushes out of the mess hall and finds Nikolai so they can escape together. However, the creature finds them by breaking through the wall, so the pair runs away until they reach the elevator and manage to push the doors closed right as the creature tries to reach inside. The elevator starts going up, but Nikolai and Anna have one last surprise waiting for them. Sergei is also there with them, melting into the floor and begging them to do something as he coughs out spores. Anna
Oh
stops
my
the elevator
God.
because she doesn't want to take the mold outside, but Nikolai doesn't want to die here and activates it again. The two of them begin fighting over control of the elevator, and when Nikolai is about to kill Anna, Sergei forces his body to do one last effort. He raises his arm and uses the exposed bone to kill Nikolai first. To show her gratitude, Anna tells Sergei that she's from Yugoslavia and kisses him before getting to work on the elevator. Anna remembers putting the wrong code 3 times will crash it, so she starts punching numbers, which proves more difficult than it sounds because she's been infected too and her body has started glowing, so she feels weak with pain. The two first tries go slowly but well, but she barely puts half a fake code when the elevator makes it to the surface, so she has to struggle against the grasp of the rescue team to punch the final numbers. The elevator starts the self-destruct sequence and falls down as Anna leaves with the new team in a van. Surrounded by soldiers, she takes the chance to steal a grenade from them and gets off the vehicle as soon as the van leaves the facility. Seeing more scientists are arriving, Anna approaches them and detonates the grenade, matching the beginning of the story. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
I tell you, some crazy ass fucking shit was going on in this shit. She said, what the fuck? It's the person talking for me. At this point, he's sick of talking. Y'all frozen? In 2041, Earth is sinking except one country, Japan.
Welcome back to Movie Recaps.
She said, oh my god, you was good at that, not moving. Oh, you was not moving. $1 million to play a game for 7 days, but there is a catch. You heard me?
Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a mystery, thriller film from 2010, titled The Insight Mill. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Two limousines are
These
taking a group
goddamn
of 10
Asian
people to the
movies,
outskirts
man.
of the city. In the first car, we find freelancer Yuki, former secretary Shoko, web designer Bioru, former CEO and drinker Yoshi, and the mysterious Sosuke. In the second car, we find medical intern Takahiro, his girlfriend and nail stylist Wakana, divorced father Munyahiro, student Setsuzan, and housewife Sawako. Nobody knows each other except for the couple, plus Yuki and Shoko. In fact, Yuki
Why
is very happy to
say
see Shoko
Madden?
is there and moves to sit next to her.
Because
as he
I
remembers
was
how
finna
he ended up
play,
here in the first place.
I'm
A
waiting
few
on
days
Black
ago,
and John.
Yuki had been at the grocery store checking out the job ads on the magazine stand when Shoko approached him to ask
But
him if
I'm
he was
gonna
also
fuck
currently
around and just
unemployed.
change it.
After he confirmed it,
When you
she
watch
showed
a
him a
movie
mysterious
recap.
message on the phone that offered a job for the equivalent of $890 an hour. As strange as it sounded, both of them ended up applying. Some hours later, they arrive at the building of the Interactium Foundation experiment, and a voice on the car speakers reminds them that they will spend 7 days there to gather psychological data while being monitored by cameras 24 hours a day. When the group enters the building, the same voice continues to give them instructions. No questions will be answered during the experiment. All their belongings must be left inside the lockers by the entrance, and this is their last chance to leave before the experiment starts. The whole group accepts to keep going and goes downstairs to the living area located underground. As soon as they enter the room, the door is locked behind them, officially starting day 1. They find themselves in a dining room with a clock on the wall that counts how many hours of the experiment are left, a mysterious number under it that keeps going up, a map of the facility, a table with a meal ready, and a set of figurines in the middle of it. They're 10 little Indians.
That's what I put. Movie recap. Man, get on my head,
These are 5 men
motherfucker.
and 5 women, matching the participants. While the group has lunch and introduces themselves, one of the figurines begins talking. It welcomes them to the Paranoia House and introduces everyone to Guard, their assistant. Guard is a floating robot that does odd jobs and will protect them, and right now, it begins projecting the rules on the wall as the figurine explains them. Everyone must stay in their rooms after 10 p.m. If Guard finds them outside, they'll be eliminated. If a crime occurs, they must solve it. The one person conducting the investigation will be the detective, and once a solution is proposed, everyone must vote on it. If the majority agrees, the criminal will be put in prison by Guard. The
Damn.
experiment ends in 7 days or when only 2 people remain. The group is weirded out by these rules and all the mention of crimes. Yuki points out they just need to live normally for 7 days, but Nishino thinks there may be a
So tell me, how old are you?
I love this game.
psychopath among them. Still not wanting everyone to panic, Yuki requests everyone should agree not to harm each other, but nobody looks very willing to accept the deal until Ando cuts in to back him up and remind everyone that this is an exercise to build trust among strangers. The figurine talks one last time to tell them about the card keys to their rooms on the wall and declares their free time begins now. Fuchi and Bioru begin by washing the dishes, and by watching Bioru's clothing, Fuchi can guess she's hiding scars under her sleeves and she's got a child. Before Bioru can deny or confirm it, they're interrupted by Nishino, who accuses Fuchi of being the principal that appeared on the news for behaving inappropriately with a student at her nursery school. Fuchi denies this and Nishino apologizes, but Bioru is clearly uncomfortable now. Meanwhile, Maki is approached by Osako, who offers him a deal. In the case of trouble, he and Tachibana will always vote for each other, so they already have an advantage. Osako wants Maki to join their team, and Maki says he'll think about it. Once again, Nishino interrupts the conversation.
What's happening,
claiming Ando
Dexter?
looks a lot like the serial killer from Nara, and Iwai is too similar
How's
to
it
the
going,
Aoyama Street
Dex,
attacker,
man?
but nobody takes
The
him
man with the
seriously.
plan?
After looking around and finding a bloodstain on a wall, Ando goes to the rec room to have a drink. Yuki approaches him to thank him for backing him up and, guessing Ando is an alcoholic, he stops him from drinking by giving
He
him the
played
tips
on
that
that-
his
this
own father,
Asian
who
dude
was a
right
former
there?
addict, used to
Him?
manage to quit.
He played on
In
that
this
other
room,
movie we
they also
watched.
find a box filled with detective
Border
items and a
Town.
huge collection of mystery novels. When
It's
the clock
like,
is about to hit 10 p.m., the voice from the
the movie
speakers
we was
reminds them
killing
to
each
go to their
other.
rooms. The participants find that there is
We
no lock on the
watched
bedroom doors,
that movie
but
that
there's a
was
mysterious
popular
box
with
for
the
each of them
damn
that can only
games
be
in it,
opened with
right?
their card keys.
And then it was
Yuki
a
opens
part
his
2.
box and finds a
It was
fire poker with a note referencing a Sherlock Holmes story that
damn,
used
I
a
don't
poker as a
remember.
murder
The point
weapon.
is, they got stuck in this
Scared,
town and it
Yuki
was
puts
like
it all back
empty.
before
These
going to
three
bed.
friends.
On the morning of day 2, Yuki
I don't
wakes
know
up to
if
find
yeah,
Shoko
I think
standing
that's
next to
the
his
same
bed,
dude. That's the
asking
same
him if
dude.
he's
He
opened
had
his
white
box.
hair though. He was
But
one
their
of the real
conversation
cool
is
niggas.
suddenly interrupted by screams coming from
He was
the
a
hallway.
laid back nigga with white. He had like blonde, long hair. He was real laid back. You know what I'm
As the
saying?
mysterious number
He
in the
kind of
dining
knew
room begins
everything. He
raising
just
pretty
watched a
fast,
bunch of
Yuki can't
shit.
help noticing that he
Yeah,
chuckles
like
when
I'm
he
trying to
realizes he's
show you
alive.
like a close up of his
Panicking,
face.
Yuki asks the cameras for the experiment to end, but Maki points out it's actually starting. Ando has found Nishino's card key on the floor,
Oh,
so they use it
fuck.
to check what is inside,
Fucking
but
missed him.
accuses Fuchi of being the principal that appeared on the news for behaving inappropriately with a student at her nursery school. Fuchi denies this and Nishino apologizes, but Bioru is clearly uncomfortable now. Meanwhile, Maki is approached by Osako, who offers him a deal. In the case of trouble, he and Tachibana will always vote for each other, so they already have an advantage. Osako wants Maki to join their team, and Maki says he'll think about it. Once again, Nishino interrupts the conversation, claiming Ando looks a lot like the serial killer from Nara and Iwai is too similar to the Aoyama Street attacker, but nobody takes him seriously. After looking around and finding a bloodstain on a wall, Ando goes to the rec room to have a drink. Yuki approaches him to thank him for backing him up and, guessing Ando is an alcoholic, he stops him from drinking by giving him the tips that his own father, who was a former addict, used to manage to quit. In this room, they also find a box filled with detective items and a huge collection of mystery novels. When the clock is about to hit 10 p.m., the voice from the speakers reminds them to go to their rooms. The participants find that there is no lock on the bedroom doors, but there's a mysterious box for each of them that can only be opened with their card keys. Yuki opens his box and finds a fire poker with a note referencing a Sherlock Holmes story that used a poker as a murder weapon. Scared, Yuki puts it all back before going to bed. On the morning of day 2, Yuki wakes up to find Shoko standing next to his bed, asking him if he's opened his box. But their conversation is suddenly interrupted by screams coming from the hallway. Bioru has found Nishino dead on the floor from 5 gunshots nobody heard. As the mysterious number in the dining room begins raising pretty fast, Yuki can't help noticing that Iwai chuckles when he arrives and sees the body. Panicking, Yuki asks the cameras for the experiment to end, but Maki points out it's actually
My Wi-Fi is shit right now.
Nishino's card key on the floor, so they use it to check what is inside his box. A dented green capsule and a note explaining it as cyanide is used in a Gideon Fall story. Some noises outside alert the group again and they run out to find guard taking Nishino away to a special room with 10 coffins, one of which closes as soon as Nishino's body is put inside. Osako is realizing all of them must have a killing tool in their boxes when the voice on the speakers reminds them a solution is needed. The detective, the criminal, and the corpse will all receive double pay. Refusing to live 6 days with a killer, Osako decides to become the detective and accuses Iwai of being the criminal because Nishino had called in the Aoyama Street attacker. Yuki protests, reminding everyone they should be trusting each other and looking at the facts instead of throwing random accusations. But Osako still calls for a vote and Tachibana, Maki, and Fuchi vote in favor of his theory, especially Fuchi.
Back my phone was tripping. That's why you're supposed to put us on your TV.
Yuki, Ando, and Bioru vote against it, and because Shoko abstains from voting, Osako's team wins. This causes Guard to activate, pick up Iwai and take him to the jail room, where he's locked in after being tased. A few moments later, Yuki checks his box again and is shocked to find the poker has been changed for a gun. Then the group decides to look into Iwai's box but they find it empty, making them think the murderer may still be among them. Later, while they're alone in the kitchen, Yuki decides to trust Shoko and tell her about the gun. She believes him when he says he didn't do it and apologizes to him for having dragged him into this wicked game. Afterward, Yuki finds Fuchi entering Shoko's room. She's brought the magnet from the detective box.
Stop gaming! In 2022, it doesn't make sense to game without getting something back. Yes, you can play games and get amazing gifts in return.
And uses it to try to open the box, but it doesn't work. Unaware that Maki is overhearing them, she starts searching the room for the gun, explaining she's caught on the Agatha Christie reference on the table and advising Yuki to look after himself because only those with the strongest will to live can survive.
No, using my phone,
When
you
night
never had to
falls
cut
and
it off
everyone
and
goes to
turn
their
it back on.
rooms, Yuki checks the gun again and discovers it has all its bullets, meaning no shots were fired. When a light appears outside, both he and Maki take a peek from behind the door, noticing Guard doing its rounds. Meanwhile, Fuchi finishes reading the novel she's taken with her and is frustrated because the last page is a cliffhanger. Desperate to know how the story ends, Fuchi decides to take a risk and go to the rec room to find the final volume in the series. But she barely takes a couple of steps before Bioru finds her and kills her with a nail gun. On the morning of day 3, the group finds Fuchi's body, so Ando and Shoko check her box only to find it empty. Tachibana begins panicking while Ando notices the mystery number on the wall getting higher at a very fast speed again. Suddenly, Maki accuses Shoko of being the killer because last night, he saw a woman's feet fleeing the scene. Trying to protect his girlfriend, Osako lies and says he saw it too, causing Yuki to argue with him again. But this time, Osako goes further and reveals his weapon, a knife, which he uses to threaten Shoko into showing them her weapon. Yuki rushes to get between her and the knife and Ando comes forward too to try and disarm Osako, but he's pushed away. Osako finds Ando to be suspicious too, not understanding why a man his age would sign up for this job, so Ando has no choice but to confess. It turns out his son had participated and died in this experiment 6 months ago, so he came to see for himself what happens here.
Well,
Now he's
goddamn.
seen how everyone behaves, he has no doubts his son and the other members of his group tore each other apart. This also means this isn't the first time they conduct this experiment. Later at night, Ando recruits the others to start patrolling the corridors. He's memorized Guard's patrol cycle, so they should be able to avoid it. Yuki and Shoko end up patrolling together, so she takes the chance to thank him for defending her earlier. She also tells him she's been watching him all along and that he's a coward but only because he's kind. Suddenly, Guard's alarm starts blaring, so Yuki and Shoko have to run away when they notice it changing its cycle. Once they're safely hidden in the dining room, Guard calms down and goes away. Then Bioru shows up for the shift change, but she's alone because Tachibana hasn't shown up. She's actually in the coffin room getting busy with Osako. When she remembers her shift is up, she rushes out of the room, leaving Osako alone to be crushed by the suspending ceiling. On the morning of day 4, the group finds Osako's body and quickly guess what happened when they see the blood on the ceiling, but they can't see a switch that could have activated it anywhere. When the ceiling suddenly shakes a bit, Ando and Yuki run outside and find Maki with a remote control in his hand. He swears it wasn't him and he just found the control as he runs into his room to grab his own weapon, which is a crossbow. Ando dodges an arrow just in time before Yuki tries to disarm Maki, but at that moment, a grieving Tachibana shows up with an axe and kills Maki before ending things for herself too. The number in the dining room is going up even faster and it's finally revealed why. The experiment is being streamed and the number indicates the amount of viewers. The 4 remaining participants check Maki's box and find a note explaining the crossbow is a reference to a Philo Vance story, which means Maki really did find the remote control around. And since Tachibana obviously wouldn't kill her boyfriend, that means Osiko's killer is still among them. Later, Bioru serves tea for everyone, and Yuki notices the scars on her wrists. Ando confesses he began drinking after he lost his son, and Bioru finally admits she has a child, so she must survive because he needs her. When night falls, Yuki goes to see Bioru in her room and asks her about the scars. She explains her parents used to beat her, so when she was younger she didn't want to live, but her son changed her, and now she lives for him. She's participating in this experiment because she needs the money to pay for her son's heart transplant overseas, and her determination to save him makes Yuki remember Fuchi's words, only those with the strongest will to live can survive. He finally realizes it was Bioru that killed Fuchi right before he falls to the floor.
Yep.
The muscle relaxant Bioru took from Fuchi's box and put in the tea is finally kicking in.
I knew it.
As she retrieves the nail gun from the box, Bioru confesses she had been afraid of Fuchi after Nishino accused her of being an abuser. Now Bioru has to kill Yuki as well, so she begins chasing him through the corridors as the lights go out. Yuki has to drag his body through the floor because of the muscle relaxant, making it easy for Bioru to catch him, but before she can do anything, Guard shows up. Yuki pushes her off him and runs into the nearest room right before Guard shoots Bioru, which is the final clue Yuki needs to figure out what's going on before passing out. On the morning of day 5, Yuki meets with Shoko and Ando, who had also fallen victims to the muscle relaxant. Yuki explains that Guard killed Bioru and there was no criminal, the same happened to Nishino. The pill in his box had been dented, meaning he tried to bite it to end things. He wanted the death bonus, so all the money could go to his children. Most likely, he had wanted to die, and the Foundation sent him to be the first victim. That's why he spent the first spreading rumors to rile them up. The group reacted exactly like the Foundation wanted, searching for a killer that didn't exist. The voice from the speakers accepts Yuki's solutions, giving him double bonus pay for them. There's still one killing unexplained though, Osiko's crushing. But Yuki doesn't want to play anymore. He thinks they should reject the game and wait for time to run out. He leaves his gun on the dining room table to show his trust, so Ando does the same by leaving his graver, but Shoko doesn't join them. On the morning of day 6, Yuki finds Ando inspecting the gun and Shoko making breakfast. Ando has finally figured out that the number on the wall represents viewers, and it becomes higher every time someone dies, so the streaming revenue must be how they pay the participants. Later that night, someone takes the gun from the table. On the morning of the last day, Yuki discovers the gun is gone, so he goes searching for his friends. He can't find them in their bedrooms, but the most shocking discovery is finding the jail room open and empty. There
STP
The jail room open and empty? The dude was in the jail room. Somebody went to see it.
are also screens inside that allow prisoners to watch every corner of the building. Then, Yuki finds a trail of blood and follows it to find a bleeding Ando inside an open coffin. Suddenly, someone attacks him from behind. It's Iwai, who escaped the jail room when the door opened on its own. He didn't kill Ando, but he admits to having killed Osako as revenge for sending him to jail. The remote control had been his weapon, so when he saw Osako alone in the coffin room on the cameras, he didn't hesitate to press the button. Then he threw the control out, and that's how Maki found it. Hearing him laugh, Yuki realizes that of all of Nishino's accusations, one had been true. Iwai is indeed the Aoyama Street attacker. Iwai begins beating Yuki up, demanding to know where the gun is, then tries to kill him with the graver. Yuki manages to push him off before running away to the dining room, where he notices there are only 5 minutes of the experiment left. Iwai quickly finds him, but before he can do anything, Shoko shows up with the gun and points it at his head. Remembering that Ando had messed with the gun, Yuki asks Shoko not to shoot, so Iwai takes advantage of the distraction to push her away and steal the gun. However, when he shoots him, the gun backfires and kills him instead. Yuki guesses Ando had altered the gun, which makes the figurine announce his pay has been doubled again, and Ando also gets a bonus for being the criminal. Furious, Yuki destroys the figurine at the same time it begins announcing game over. At that moment, the doors open, and as Yuki and Shoko leave the building, Ando opens his eyes. He actually never died, he just put blood on his chest and mouth to pretend to be dead, which explains why his coffin never closed. At the building entrance, a Foundation employee is waiting for Yuki to give him the bag with all the money he won. Yuki takes it and asks Shoko to come with him, but she has a final confession to make. She works for the Foundation as well. Her job is to increase the number of viewers, which is why she let Iwai out of prison and put the gun in Yuki's box. The reason why she invited Yuki to participate is that cowards always do well in the experiment. This doesn't explain why she helped him though, and when Yuki asks her that, she refuses to answer. After Shoko leaves in a car, Ando joins Yuki and both men begin making their way home on foot. As a final act of refusing to fall under the Foundation's manipulation, Yuki throws the bag of money away. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.
What the fuck is wrong?
More videos like
Throw a bag of money away. What? What? Sir, I ain't gonna do all that shit for no reason. Oh, fuck no. Elite soldiers end up as lab rats after being sent on a remote island to be hunted by egg robots. Uses nail clippers to escape from prison. The soldier wakes up in someone else's body. Oh, fuck. You talking about this right here?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an action, drama, mystery film from 2011 titled Source Code.
This the movie I never fucking
Watch out and take
understood.
care. A train is moving toward Chicago.
But I seen it.
Captain Coulter Stevens, an army pilot, wakes up on the train, confused as to where he is. Christina begins to talk to him and calls him Sean.
Y'all
He looks
watching
through the
it?
train, distracted by every movement.
Two
so he doesn't
viewers,
even
2 to 3
respond to the
viewers.
conductor when
Y'all
he asks
watching?
for his ticket. Coulter is jumpy with Christina as well when she tries to help him find his ticket. She asks him why he's acting so strange, but Coulter tells her that he doesn't know who she is. He gets up and goes outside for a second, trying to figure out where he is, but he comes back to his seat next to Christina. Suddenly, he sees his reflection in the window, showing a different face. Coulter goes to the toilet and looks at himself in the mirror, seeing someone completely different. He opens the wallet and sees the same guy there. Christina is waiting for him in front of the toilet. He tells her that he neither knows Sean nor her. Suddenly, the train explodes. Coulter wakes up in a different place, hearing a female voice telling him that he's with Beleaguered Castle and asking if he's functional. He's still confused and can't answer any of the questions the disembodied voice is asking him. The voice only wants to know what happened on the train and where the explosion came from. Coulter asks her who she is, and she shows up on a monitor in front of him, telling Coulter that he already knows that. She tells him that they will rebuild his memory pattern and begins a mnemonic procedure. The woman reads him a passage while accompanying visuals appear on the screen. Coulter isn't paying attention and is trying to get himself out of the seat as the woman continues with the exercises. Suddenly, he remembers parts of the exercise and repeats back what he had heard before. She asks for her name, and Coulter calls her Goodwin. Dr. Rutledge shows up briefly on the monitor checking something, then Coulter asks to talk to his father. Goodwin interrupts him and continues to ask him about the bomb on the train. She tells him that Christina calling him another name is incidental. He doesn't know who bombed the train, so Goodwin tells him that he will go back inside for 8 minutes again. Coulter thinks that he's in a simulation, but Goodwin will not give him any information about his status. She just insists that he find out more information about the train. Find the bomb, and you find the bomber. Coulter is back on the train. Christina is telling him that she gave her notice at work and will be taking the LSAT. He hears a soda can open, and a woman spills coffee on his shoe. Coulter says that it's the same train but somehow different, which Christina understands as some deep statement. He activates a timer on his watch and says that everything looks so realistic, still convinced he's in a simulation. Coulter looks around for the possible bomber and jumps over to
There is disturbing news out of Vernon Central High School.
What's going on?
Hundreds of students have gone to...
We are in charge now, so pull out whichever app you use to do live streaming video. Get them up and running and point it at me. Now!
There's guys with guns everywhere.
Get down on the ground! Any more friends back there?
Is it safe to say that this might be our guardian angel? Do you want more people to die?
That's the last thing I want.
a guy asking how long the delay would be.
All these
The guy
weird ass
jokes around,
fucking
and
movies.
Christina tells him that he's a comedian. He looks around the train searching for something out of the ordinary, and he sees a student give back someone their wallet. Coulter steps back on the train and remembers that the explosion came from behind him. He goes into the toilet and looks through it. Coulter notices that the vent has been tampered with and opens it, finally finding the bomb. He begins talking to Goodwin, thinking she can hear him and instruct him on the next steps with the bomb. Coulter leaves the bomb how he found it and gets another idea on how to find the bomber. He goes back into the cart, lies to the people that he's transit security and that there has been some kind of security breach, so they have to stop using all of their electronic devices. No one really believes him, and when he sees a man still on his laptop, he closes it for him and breaks his jaw. Christina runs over to the man to help him, and Coulter says not to worry because neither he nor she are real. The train explodes, and he's back. Goodwin tells him to stabilize and lower his pulse. She asks if he found the bomb, and he tells her that he did, but Coulter asks to speak to Dr. Rutledge since he figured out that he's her commanding officer. Coulter thinks that he was in Afghanistan just 2 days before, but Goodwin says that it was 2 months. He's still confused, but he replies to her questions about the train. She tells him that he's not in a simulation, but that real lives are at stake. Coulter wants to know more before he can continue with the mission. Goodwin asks Rutledge if she can tell him anything, and when he confirms that she can, Goodwin tells him that the train he was on had already exploded that morning and that more attacks like that one are underway. Sean Fentress was on that train, and Coulter is him now. He doesn't understand yet, but she keeps pushing for information. Coulter tells her where he found the bomb and what kind of detonator it operated with. Goodwill explains that the detonation was planned to occur at the same time when a freight train was passing by, engulfing both vehicles. The bomber must have been close enough to see when that would happen to detonate the bomb. She tells him to concentrate on the passengers on his train and concentrate on performing only the tasks that she has given him. They send him back. Coulter wakes on the train in the middle of the same conversation. The woman spills coffee on Christina's shoes, and she's very kind about it, which Coulter comments on. He believes she's real now. Coulter asks the conductor about the behavior of the passengers on the train, and the man replies that he's the one looking strange. Then, he asks Christina if someone looks suspicious to her, tells her to sit next to him, and says to think of it as a game. She jokes around about all of the people in the car, naturally not taking him seriously, commenting that he knows the people more than her because he talks to them all the time. Suddenly, Coulter notices a guy coming out of the bathroom, and Christina comments that they're going into racial profiling. She tells him that he's the only other person she'd seen coming out of there, making him think for a second. Coulter looks through Sean's things, but only finds her name in his notebook. He wants to go after the guy he saw earlier and makes Christina come with him. Coulter tells her to wait outside the station as he follows the guy inside the washroom. He can hear him getting sick in a stall and inspects him, making him really uncomfortable. The guy leaves with Coulter after him. He joins him at the bench where he's sitting on and asks to borrow his phone. The guy asks to be left alone and leaves when Coulter attacks him and keeps asking to see his phone. Suddenly, the bomb explodes and he thinks that the guy may be the bomber. Not completely convinced, he goes after him again and the man pushes him on the tracks. Coulter doesn't get up in time and is hit by an oncoming train. He awakens in the other place, but neither can he hear beleaguered castle, nor they Coulter. The place feels freezing cold and begins shutting down. The man working with Goodwin tells her that he's in trouble. Then they both go to see Rutledge, who tells them that no one has ever been in a situation like him before and that they should keep sending signals to him and see if he responds to any of them. Meanwhile, Coulter finds a toolkit and manages to restart the power in the place where he's at. He begins hearing distorted voices, as Rutledge is sitting down on Goodwin's computer. Coulter hears her reading the passage to him and calls out to her as Rutledge is preparing to leave. The doctor talks to him, telling him that he invented the thing he is inside of and confirms that he's in charge. As Coulter tells him that he saved a passenger from the train, Goodwin comes back and continues the conversation. She tells him that saving the people on the train is outside of his mission. Coulter insists that she survived, but Rutledge explains that she survived only in the source code. When asked by Coulter what that means, he tries to simplify it for him. Source code is not a time travel machine, but something more similar to time reassignment. He can only go back there and report to what he has seen in a kind of parallel reality, through the eyes of Sean Fentress, who is his link. Coulter insists that he saved someone, so Goodwin asks for her name and looks for her online. She tells Coulter that Christina died that morning on the train. He still doesn't understand, but they need to send him back again because there is a second suspected attack in the center of Chicago. They think that this time the bombers will activate a dirty bomb, so the city is being evacuated. The army thinks that if he can find who bombed the train, the second attack might be prevented. Before they send him back, Goodwin tells him about a handgun he can find on the train. She authorizes him to use every force necessary. When Coulter wakes up on the train, he's very disappointed to see Christina there. They talk a little and it's apparent that he's slowly falling in love with her. Coulter has a mission though, and he gets up to achieve it. He goes looking for the gun and finds it exactly where Goodwin told him it would be. Unfortunately, the conductor...
Don't lose your shop when building an online store. Selling online with your own e-commerce website has never been easier, faster, or more scalable. Impress your customers with a beautiful online store. Get started today with Shopify.
That look like her booty falling off. Can you see that?
No. Yeah, it's like I can see it when it goes up, but
Get $50 off your first month of cable-free live TV and enjoy 85+ live channels. With YouTube TV, try it free.
Catches him getting into the safe with the gun. He points the gun at him when the second conductor electrocutes him. Coulter wakes up on the train again, only to see Christina next to him asking what he was doing. He doesn't know what to tell her and knows he's running out of time, so he asks her what she would do if she only had 1 minute left to live. Coulter tells her that he would call his dad and tell him he's sorry. Christina tells him that everything is going to be okay as the bomb explodes on the train again. Before he wakes up in the other place, Coulter has some strange visions involving Christina. He tells Goodwin that the gun wasn't the best idea and that he wants to speak to his dad. She brushes him off, saying that she will try to do that. Coulter asks her how he is doing because he doesn't understand the process. She moves aside to show him where he is being kept and tells him that she hasn't been on the other side of the source code because the specifications are tremendously narrow for a viable candidate. Goodwin doesn't want to waste more time, and after she assures him that he's doing good, sends him back to check through the passengers' things. Coulter is back on the train and gets to it faster. He draws the military patch that Goodwin has shown him when Christina approaches him. Coulter asks her to look for his friend that disappeared in Afghanistan and gives her his real name to search for. Suddenly, he becomes suspicious of a guy talking on the phone. He goes over to him and searches through his bag, looking for something. Coulter notices that a woman has a bag from an army medical center and goes up to talk to her. He asks her about the letters on the patch. She tells him that it stands for Air Force and that the N stands for Nellis. Coulter asks her for her phone and calls Nellis Air Force Base. He asks for Rutledge and tells the operator to tell him that Captain Coulter Stevens is calling for him. Christina finds him and tells him that the friend he asked her to look for is dead, killed in action 2 months ago. Suddenly, Coulter has some memories from Afghanistan and he hears Goodwin's voice again, taking him through the mnemonic exercises. When he wakes up in the other place, he immediately asks Goodwin if he's dead. He tells her that he found an article online saying just that, as well as that his father received a medal for him.
You got me.
She tells him that he needs to focus on the train.
No, she got something, but
Coulter insists to know, and Goodwin tells him part of the truth. She says that part of his brain is still active, but that his body is a manifestation. Coulter asks if he's imagining that he's in the capsule, and the thing begins to fall apart. She confirms that the capsule is also a manifestation and doesn't tell him where his actual body is being kept. Rutledge intervenes, saying that they need to send him back to the train, so that he asks for Rutledge and tells the operator to tell him that Captain Coulter Stevens is calling for him. Christina finds him and tells him that the friend he asked her to look for is dead, killed in action 2 months ago. Suddenly, Coulter has some memories from Afghanistan and he hears Goodwin's voice again, taking him through the mnemonic exercises. When he wakes up in the other place, he immediately asks Goodwin if he's dead. He tells her that he found an article online saying just that, as well as that his father received a medal for him. She tells him that he needs to focus on the train and that everything else is irrelevant. Coulter insists to know, and Goodwin tells him part of the truth. She says that part of his brain is still active, but that his body is a manifestation. Coulter asks if he's imagining that he's in the capsule, and the thing begins to fall apart. She confirms that the capsule is also a manifestation and doesn't tell him where his actual body is being kept. Rutledge intervenes, saying that they need to send him back to the train so that he can prevent another attack. Coulter still doesn't agree with the way the source code works and tells Rutledge that he called him from the train that morning. The doctor tells him that he didn't receive that call, and if he did, it would have been a different reality. But Rutledge receiving that call would be a different Rutledge entirety. Coulter needs more convincing, so the doctor tells him that the project was sanctioned by a military court. Furthermore, he tells the Air Force captain that many other soldiers would love the opportunity more preferable than death, having the possibility to continue serving their country. Coulter's retort to that statement is that for many soldiers, one death is service enough. Rutledge promises him that he will let him die if he finishes the mission. Before he sends him back on the train, Rutledge tells him that 2 million Americans depend on the success of their mission, and if he doesn't value his own life, he should value theirs. Then, Rutledge proceeds to take Coulter back on the train over and over again with no rest period in between. He tells the soldier that they will keep doing it until he finds the bomber. Coulter says that he can't do it, and Rutledge manipulates him into getting him where he needs Coulter to be. He plays a recording of his father giving an interview after he died, feeling sorry that they never really understood each other. Coulter tells Rutledge to send him back in. Coulter is back on the train and goes straight for the gun, the bomb. He takes the detonator phone out from the bomb and calls the only phone number in its call log. A man answers as Coulter moves through the train. He tells him to turn around, but the man in front of him hears him and turns. Coulter sits next to him and threatens him with a gun, saying that he can't kill anyone. The man swears that he was talking to his wife, so he makes him call the phone again. Suddenly, another phone rings and he apologizes to him. He hears the phone outside and follows after the guy. He sees him putting his wallet back on the train and finally knows his name, Eric Frost. The door is closed, so he opens it with the emergency handle and jumps off so that he can go after him. Coulter sees him go into a white van and goes up to him. He shows Derek the phone, but he pretends that he doesn't recognize it. Coulter knows it's him though, so he shows him the second bomb inside the van. He inspects the bomb and asks him where his next target is when Catherine shows up. Derek shoots them both. Coulter is still alive, so Derek gives him the whole speech on why he's doing it. His explanation is that the world is hell and that it needs to be rebuilt. For the world to be rebuilt, it needs to be destroyed. Derek gets in the van and leaves them there. The bomb in the train explodes regardless. When Coulter transitions back to the capsule,
Some girl
he sees the
lied
images
for
from
booty.
before more clearly. Immediately as he comes back, he tells Goodwin and Rutledge about the bomber in the van he went into. He confirms that the second bomb is radioactive. Rutledge and Goodwin congratulate him and say that his mission is over. Before they leave him, he asks to be sent back to try to save the people before he dies. Meanwhile, the Army arrests Derek Frost before he can detonate the second bomb. Rutledge gets validation from his superiors about his project
That's
and
them
Goodwin
whole
returns to
shots.
talk to Coulter. He talks about the possibilities of parallel realities and what different versions of people might be like there. Goodwin explains that he only saw shadows or after images of the people that died on the train. She tells him that he can't alter the past, but Coulter insists that there was a failsafe on the explosive that he didn't see before and that she's wrong. Coulter pleads with her to send him back in without approval and then switch him off. She has some trouble deciding, but still does it, telling him that at the end of his source code she will terminate his life support. Coulter tells her that he'll save Christina. Goodwin says that it was an honor and wishes him good luck. Coulter is back on the train for the last time. He asks Christina out for coffee and she very gladly accepts. Coulter asks her to give him a few minutes to save the world. He instantly goes toward the bomb and takes out the first and second detonators. Then he passes by Derek and steals the conductor's handcuffs. While the source code is active, Rutledge gets more good reviews from his superiors as Goodwin walks into his office. He tells her to wipe Coulter's memory and prepare him for a new source code. Rutledge has no intention to let him die to Goodwin's disapproval. Back at the train, Coulter stops Derek from going out of the train and cuffs him to a bar. He shows him the phone and calls the police, telling them everything about Derek and the radioactive bomb in the van. Coulter takes his phone and leaves him there. He sends an email to Goodwin from his phone and calls his dad. Coulter tells him that he's a friend of his and that before he died he wanted to say that he was sorry. Meanwhile, Goodwin goes to the place where they are keeping his body and opens the chamber, seeing the state that is in. Coulter's dad tells him that he wishes he told him that he loved him. He says that he knows it. Coulter goes back to Christina. Rutledge gets a call that Goodwin is with Coulter. He asks for MPs to join him at Coulter's chamber and tries to unlock the door. Goodwin waits for Coulter's 8 minutes to run out. On the train, Coulter asks Christina what she would do if she had less than a minute to live. She says that she would make those seconds count. Coulter kisses her. Goodwin switches his life support off and the MPs run inside only to see Coulter's dead body. Back at the train, the explosion never happens. Coulter says that everything is going to be okay. He and Christina take a walk to the Chicago Bean and Coulter realizes that the visions he had when transitioning were of that same moment. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.
His ass lived in the source code. Look. Wait, who is this?
Welcome to Recapss. Today I will show you a crime
Who
action
live that
drama
is?
film from 2019 titled The Informer. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Pete works as an undercover agent for the field office of FBI NYC. He has worked his way into a Polish crime organization and is in the process of providing his handler with solid evidence to indict the crime boss, the general. He informs his wife and daughter that they need to take a trip because the long-awaited operation has begun. Pete's handler, Erica, informs her team of the plan where Pete will deliver the 6 pounds of fentanyl to the general, and that's where they come in. Pete locks his family into the house and leaves his wife the key. If he is not back by 1 p.m. tomorrow, she is to leave the
No,
state.
but I seen what she was wearing, and I went to her live and seen what she was
uses a phone
wearing.
to make contact with
That's her real booty, though.
In case things go sour, he's to ask for a smoke and Erica's team will come to get him.
She ain't got no
Stacey
shots.
and Pete
It's
greet a
just her
diplomat
booty
who
just
has
look
a
like
batch of
that.
fentanyl. Following the plan, they put the fentanyl in another bag and drop the diplomat off at the hotel. Stasek goes to buy a bottle of liquor for the general, his uncle. He decides to surprise him with cash instead of fentanyl and tells Pete that he already has a buyer for it, but he doesn't respond with anything so as not to blow his cover. This throws the whole plan for a loop, but Erica still decides to follow them. At a club, the buyer is extremely nervous and confesses that he doesn't have enough money to buy all 6 pounds, but he's good for 3 and can get more money for the other 3, which are worth $85,000, which displeases Stasek. Pete calms him down and starts asking questions about how he's going to raise the $85K in 2 hours and starts doubting him. When Stasek goes to take a call, Pete confronts him about being a cop and tells him this is his chance to get out, but the buyer continues to play dumb. He pushes him to the ground and all he has to do is leave, but he pulls out a gun and a badge and Stasek shoots him. Pete is in disbelief and says he needs to go have a smoke, signaling to Erica to come in, but she calls the plan off and drives past Pete, leaving him to his own devices. He then helps to bag and dispose of the body. At a sausage factory, Pete is invited in and meets the general. He calmly explains to him that a New York cop was killed and someone has to answer for it if they don't want the NYPD.
Because I watched her live a couple times. I could tell if a booty real or fake.
The general makes it seem like Stasek saved Pete's life and now owes him his life's worth. To pay his debt, he asks Pete to go to prison and run the drug ring from the inside for 5 years. To intimidate him even more, the general tells him to think of his family, leaving him no other choice. Pete and his family are brought back home and he contacts Erica. She tells him she couldn't.
Oh no, she just followed me on my Trap Wing page.
Up the
I follow back.
He is angry that his wife Sophie.
Well, she be going live.
Quickly reconcile.
She be talking to her live, and her booty look real.
The police
it
find
just
the body.
It look like that. He got a booty like punky.
He quickly finds out that his friend.
You know that woman that be twerking with Fly Boy Kino, the New Orleans bounce music musician
They have been
dude.
trying to cover it all up, but to no avail.
That's what her booty kind of remind me of.
That look. Plan and lock him up.
You
If
know
he
what I'm
gathers
saying?
enough evidence in state prison about the fentanyl distribution network, he will be a free man. However, if he refuses, he will be exposed as an undercover agent and sent to prison for the murder of an undercover police officer. Not much of a choice. Back at
Lemonade Renters Insurance covers your $1 million t-shirt, $1 million sunglasses, $1 million MP3 player, and the other stuff you spent your 20 Bitcoin on in 2011. Protect a lot for not a lot at lemonade.com.
home, Pete puts the recordings of his conversation with Eric.
This is Story Recapped. Today I'm gonna explain a drama sci-fi film called Proximity. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In 1979, lumberjacks in Wrangell, Alaska prepare to return to town after harvesting trees from the forest. As Carl Meisner follows another vehicle, his radio starts malfunctioning, so he searches for a good
Duh, her
reception when he
ass look
arrives.
better.
Suddenly, the truck in front of him gets lifted into the air and lands upside down. While Carl attempts to help the driver, a UFO appears in the sky. He tries to flee, but the ship's beams capture him and take him into the flying saucer. At present, Isaac Cypress goes to work at the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, California. As soon as he arrives at the office, his co-worker Beck tells him that it's his turn to search for an audio signal. Isaac immediately traces a signal in front of Pluto, but Beck claims that it wasn't the signal that he sent. Beck asserts that it's the signal they always trace back to Canada, but he's puzzled because there are no grounded satellites there. Their co-worker Greta asks them what they're doing, so Beck explains that they're playing a game where Isaac tries to find the audio files he sends through NASA satellites. That night, Isaac comes across another signal and tries to locate its source, but their systems indicate it's from an unknown origin. Afterward, Isaac visits a therapist to talk about his past trauma. Isaac notes that he's not ready to move on, so the therapist advises him to create a video diary to express his feelings and clear his mind. Isaac follows the therapist's advice and starts recording his thoughts daily. One day, he goes on a hike with his camera to record his diary in the mountains. Isaac suddenly sees a meteorite crashing toward Earth, so he uses the camera to capture its descent. Soon, Isaac hears the police arriving, so he hides in the bushes.
When they first started
When
throwing
Isaac
their
runs
asses
to the
running
woods,
here.
he sees a flying saucer above him. He records the UFO with his camera for a moment, but it suddenly vanishes. As he puts his camera down, he senses someone watching him. He sees a gray alien when he turns around, so he secretly turns on his camera to record the strange being. As soon as the alien walks away, Isaac runs in the opposite direction. However, he loses consciousness when a beam of light flashes in front of him. Isaac wakes up on a hilltop near the sea 3 days later, not knowing where he is. He immediately checks his camera and sees the footage of the gray alien. A moment later, the recording shows his feet rising from the ground as if he's being lifted into the air. When Isaac gets home, he sees his TV vanishing into thin air. His hand seemingly goes through a portal when he puts it over the table where the TV used to be. After the TV reappears, he focuses on his camera. It also vanishes, but the object reappears after he concentrates. Isaac goes to the doctor the next day and finds out that he has a fractured arm. The doctor is perplexed because the fracture is perfectly straight and thin, unlike normal fractures. The doctor is even more fascinated because there's no sign of scar tissue on his skin. so he tells Isaac that he'll continue reviewing his x-rays. When Isaac goes to work, he tries showing Beck that he can make objects disappear. Isaac manages to make a cup vanish, but the object never disappears from Beck's point of view. Isaac decides to show Beck the footage of the gray alien and explains that it happened when he went hiking on Saturday. Isaac thinks that only one day has passed, but Beck reveals that Isaac has been gone from work the whole week. Moments later, Greta arrives and informs Beck that they have analyzed the soil samples from the meteorite crash site, but there's no sign that it even landed there. She notes that the best evidence they have is footage from someone's cell phone. Greta discloses that it was uploaded to the website of Science magazine and quickly garnered 1 million views, so Isaac decides to post his video on the same website. The local TV station, KFLA, soon discovers Isaac's video and contacts him to schedule an interview. When Isaac checks his video on the website, he discovers that it has been viewed more than 800,000 times. His mailbox shows numerous emails asking him for an interview. In the comments section of the video, he sees a few people who believe that the video is real, but others dismiss it as fake.
He said, is this what y'all watch every day or in there?
Asking him for an interview. Soon, Isaac goes to KFLA to tell his alien abduction story. As he narrates what happened during his hike, Christine, the host, expresses her skepticism about the
we just started watching this
she
shit.
thinks it was convenient that he had his camera.
But I watch
on
this
that
shit all the
day.
time.
Isaac explains that he was documenting himself as part of his therapy. Christine points out that he has a degree in mathematics and works as a computer engineer, so she asks him if he could have faked the video. Isaac insists that the video is real and the abduction really happened. Over the next few days, more media outlets dismiss the footage as a hoax, and a man even claims that he helped Isaac create the video. Isaac begins searching the internet for people who had a similar abduction experience. After finding someone who claims to have the same arm fracture, Isaac immediately arranges a meeting. The next day, Isaac goes to a diner and meets with a woman named Sarah. Isaac asks Sarah about her experience, but she's reluctant to tell him anything. Isaac shows Sarah the video and tells her that he reached out to her because he realized that it's hard to convince people that the aliens really abducted him. He then shows her several examples of UFOs and Renaissance art and tells her about unexplained signals from outer space. Isaac also notes that astronauts have also taken photographs of UFOs during space flights. Sarah asks him if he heard about the alien abduction case in Alaska in 1979. She finds the incident remarkable because all witnesses went through lie detector tests and passed. She notes that the abductee, Carl, went missing after he came out with his story. Before parting ways, Isaac gives Sarah his phone number to keep in touch. Days later, Sarah contacts Isaac to tell him more about the abduction in 1979 and discloses that the abductee was Carl Meisner. Isaac immediately looks up the name on the internet, but he can't find anything. Isaac decides to create copies of his video and looks up the addresses of numerous websites about alien encounters. While he's dropping the tapes into the mailbox, a man named Keith Auberman sees him having difficulty doing it, so he offers to help. Keith soon recognizes him from the news and notes that the media is not treating him fairly. He offers to let Isaac explain his side of the story through his blog and gives him a card with his contact number and office address. When Isaac visits the office, Keith advises him to go through a lie detector test to convince the people he's telling the truth. Isaac agrees, and Keith immediately installs the equipment on his laptop to begin the test. After a few test questions, Keith asks him if he has ever run away from home. Isaac responds affirmatively and tries to explain, but Keith reminds him that he can only answer with yes or no. Keith asks a few questions about the incident and the video before inquiring if Isaac had an encounter with extraterrestrials. When Isaac answers yes, Keith leaves the office and promises to return. Moments later, two men in black enter the room and grab Isaac. When they reach the hallway, Isaac attempts to flee, but one of the men shoots him with a ray gun. Isaac regains consciousness while androids are carrying him in a corridor. The androids take him to a windowless room with white walls and a ceiling. After the robots strap him to a chair, he sees two more androids taking Sarah into another room. Soon, Keith appears on the TV and tells Isaac that his real name is Agent Graves. He asserts that Isaac has valuable information to help society and asks him to be compliant as they perform tests on him. After determining that Isaac has a tracker in his arm, they test him to determine if he has gained special abilities after the abduction. When Isaac fails to demonstrate any ability, Graves asks him what he knows about Carl. Isaac claims that he doesn't know Carl, so Graves threatens him. Graves continues asking him about Carl and remarks that they won't find him by wandering around British Columbia aimlessly. Isaac breaks free from the straps, so the androids enter the room to subdue him again. As soon as the androids approach, Isaac hits them with a pole, damaging the robot severely. After fleeing from his cell, he finds Sarah in another room, so he uses his ability to open the secure door and helps her break free. As they find their way out of the facility, they encounter 2 more androids, so Isaac runs back to his room to grab a weapon from the damaged robots to fire back at their pursuers. The pair soon come across a locked door, so Isaac concentrates hard to unlock it. Isaac and Sarah eventually escape through the door before the androids reach them. When they get out of the facility, the two find themselves in an unfamiliar forest, but a label on a cow cart hints that they're in Costa Rica. Graves instructs his robots to track the pair, hoping that they will lead them to Carl. Isaac and Sarah stop by a cafe and ask where they can access the internet, so the waitress tells them to find a man named Zed at a restaurant about 2 kilometers away. The pair eventually reaches the restaurant and gets in touch with Zed. However, they see androids arriving, so they leave the premises immediately. On their way to Zed's hideout, Zed tells them that the androids are from the International Space Research Program, an agency that works for the UN. He discloses that they have underground facilities all over the forest, but not a lot of people know about them. Upon reaching Zed's place, Isaac mentions that they need to find Carl Meisner. As Zed sets up his computer, Sarah confesses that she knew about Isaac before they met at the diner because she saw him on the news. Sarah reveals that she was abducted while staying at her aunt's cabin in the mountains. She recounts that she heard a noise outside the cabin that night when her aunt and uncle were away. She saw something strange in the sky, but she didn't make too much of it and went back to sleep. Sarah discloses that she felt different when she woke up at 2 in the morning. When her aunt and uncle saw her the following day, they told her that she had been missing for 2 days. Sarah notes that she doesn't remember anything, but she researched alien abductions after recalling the strange object in the sky. She tried to tell other people about her experience, but they thought she was crazy. Soon, Zed tells Isaac that he can't find anything on Carl. Isaac recalls Graves mentioning British Columbia during the interrogation and remembers the audio signal that Beck traced to Canada. Upon gaining access to one of the JPL satellites, they trace the audio signal to an isolated cabin in Canada. The 3 contact Carl through video chat, but he immediately disconnects the call. When they call once again, Isaac immediately tells him about his alien abduction and encounter with the ISRP. Isaac notes that he might have been abducted because he came across a mysterious signal the same night he found Carl's signal. When they send data from the mysterious signal to Carl, he runs it through his translator and learns that the aliens intend to visit the cabin in 5 days. Carl advises the trio to lay low and stay off the grid before disconnecting the call. Isaac convinces Sarah to go with him to find Carl's cabin, noting that he is the only one who can help them. Zed decides to join them and helps them find transportation to British Columbia. When they reach British Columbia, they ride a train that will lead them to the town closest to Carl's cabin. During the train ride, Zed's computer detects the presence of 2 androids. The androids soon board the train, so Zed gives them masks to confuse the robot's facial recognition system. The androids fail to recognize them, but one of the robots gets suspicious of Isaac and tries to shoot him. Fortunately, Isaac manages to dodge his rays. The 3 climb to the roof, so one of the androids follows them. When the pursuing robot falls off the train, the remaining android immediately heads to the door to find a way to the roof. However, Zed waits for the android by the door and kicks it off the train. Upon reaching the train station, the trio hitches another ride to Carl's cabin. When they get to the cabin, Carl comes out with a shotgun, so Isaac immediately explains that he's the one who passed along the data from the signal. Carl deduces that they still have trackers in their bodies, so he deactivates them and discloses that the aliens installed them. Carl tells them they're early because the aliens' scheduled visit is still 2 days away. When they get inside the house, Carl explains that he started buying equipment to contact the aliens after escaping from ISRP. He notes that he picked up mysterious signals over the years and translated them after decoding them to audio. In one of the old translated messages, an alien remarks that its ship has reached Earth's orbit and has detected humans on the planet. Sarah and Isaac spend the next day talking about their abduction and exploring the forest. When they get home, Carl warns Isaac that there's no guarantee for their safety when the aliens come. As Sarah tries to sleep, Isaac tells her that he's glad to meet someone who understands what happened to him. The following day, the group spends most of their time waiting for the aliens to arrive. When Isaac feels the ground shaking, he approaches Carl to ask if he felt the quake as well. Carl tells him that the aliens are close, so Isaac heads to the forest. Soon, a gray alien appears behind him. so he asks what it wants. That night, the aliens join them in the cabin to answer all their questions. When Isaac asks them why they abducted people, one of the aliens explains that they've already overcome all challenges in medicine and technology on their planet, so they visit other places in search of something beyond their understanding. The alien claims that they study humans because they have a mysterious aura within them. The alien tells them that they want to know about a particular human and projects images of Jesus Christ in the minds of Sarah and Isaac. When Isaac asks why they're looking for him, the alien stresses that he is a link to the universe's origin and has a strong amount of the aura they found in humans. Sarah asks them why their arms hurt, so the alien uses a device to sever her arm and take the tracker that they installed. After reattaching Sarah's arm, the alien proceeds to take off the tracker inside Isaac. During the procedure, Carl's security system suddenly alert them to the arrival of intruders. When Carl investigates, he discovers that they're surrounded by ISRP agents. Soon, Graves instructs Carl to come out of the cabin and asks him to reveal what happened to Ronald Graves. Carl soon comes out and explains that he doesn't know what happened to his father. Graves refuses to believe Carl and instructs his agents to shoot him. When Sarah comes out, Graves orders his agents to shoot her as well. After reattaching Isaac's arm,
Rain takes the freak
alien
side.
instructs him
Nah,
to
for
focus on his
real.
senses to use his ability. When the aliens vanish, Isaac goes outside as the agents are firing at the house. Upon reaching the doorstep, Isaac vanishes with Sarah and Carl, taking them into a parallel dimension. Afterward, he comes back for Zed, who is busy trying to save Carl's equipment. Graves soon instructs his agents to stop shooting upon realizing that the group has disappeared. The aliens soon return to revive Sarah and Carl. Afterward, the group walks past Graves and his agents to go to the woods, but they seem invisible to the agents. Moments later, Graves sees the alien ship rising into the sky before vanishing without a trace. After 6 months, Sarah and Isaac fall in love and move to Costa Rica, while Zed and Carl join forces to launch a new tech intelligence agency called Zuma. Isaac continues recording his video diary, but he's not interested in showing any of them to the public.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on
God damn, what the fuck?
and leave a like at
I hate movies like that. I need more.
Thank you for watching.
I feel like I missed a bunch of shit. It's really raining, bro.
To realize automotive case, we support electrification and in-vehicle networks for automated driving. TDK supports the
What
realization
human body
of
is
case.
extracted
We offer
into
component
drinking
filters
water?
and small size varistors for
What
next
the
generation in-vehicle network and high frequency, outstanding reliability power
Two
inductors.
kids are stranded on an island, then they do
To
this.
achieve the
Oh, have you ever seen that movie?
reliability, we also offer soft termination.
It's called the movie's called The Blue Lagoon.
Automotive Society.
I think it's called The Blue Lagoon. I'm finna play the
It's here to make your choice easy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm John from Fast Films and
Yep, it's called The Blue Lagoon. My mom, it's actually two of them, and it's really, the second one is kind of weird. I think the second one is like incest. When you think about it. I would actually take the chat off.
today.
Oh, shit. Look how tiny chat.
Today we're going to take a look at a 1980 romance adventure film called The Blue Lagoon. The movie begins on a ship. Two children, called Richard and Emmeline, sit at the edge of the ship looking at the water. Richard's father, Arthur, comes to the children and forbids them from sitting so close to the edge. Their conversation reveals that Emmeline has lost both her parents, and Richard has also lost his mother, leaving Arthur as his only parent. Arthur tells the children that Emmeline's parents and Richard's
So
mother
both
have
the
gone to
kids are
heaven.
not related, they both
Once
dead.
the children complete
Both
the journey
their
of life,
parents
they
dead.
will also join their parents in heaven. Later that day, Richard finds some new
God damn.
photos in Patty's cabin and curiously starts going through them. Emmeline also joins him and asks him what he's looking at. In the meantime, Patty returns to his cabin. He gets angry and spanks Richard. Emmeline tries to stop Patty, but as a response, he begins punishing her as well. Suddenly, the ship catches fire. Pandemonium breaks loose in the ship and everyone starts running around and looking for solutions. When it becomes evident that the ship will explode, people get on emergency boats and evacuate the ship. Arthur and his fellow crewmates get on a boat and move away from the ship, while Patty and the children get on a different boat. They hastily roll away from the ship to get as far from it as possible before the explosion. The ship shortly explodes into pieces, erupting into a cloud of smoke. Due to the smoke, Arthur and Patty are unable to locate each other's ships and drift away from each other. Patty searches the boat for something useful. However, he finds nothing apart from some wedding photos and clothes. A whole day passes with Patty and the children rowing their boat around hopelessly without food or water. The next day, the three sight an island and excitedly take their boat to it. Patty and the children are extremely happy to find fresh water and food after so long. While eating fruits on the island, Patty discovers a barrel of rum there. Richard brings Patty a skull and asks him what it is. Patty freaks out and immediately takes the children away. While Patty is looking at the water, Richard asks him why his father hasn't come. Patty tells him that his father will soon come to take him home. Just then, Patty notices that Emmeline is eating some wild berries. Patty panics. He tells Emmeline to immediately spit the berries out. He tells her that berries can be dangerous. To make the children understand the danger, Patty says that the berries are never wake up berries. In the next few days, Patty teaches the children some survival hacks. He builds them a signal and tells them to light it as fast as possible if they ever see a ship. He also teaches them how to build things using straws and makes them a hut. One day, while wandering the island, Patty finds freshly ripped out flesh placed on rock. Terrified, Patty immediately returns to the safer side of the island. At night, while the children are playing and copying the wedding photos they found in the boat, Patty sternly forbids them from ever going to the other side of the island. The children ask him why. Patty tells them that the boogeyman lives on the other side and that he eats children. One day, Patty drinks a lot of rum. He dances with the children around the fire and then falls asleep. The children leave him there and go inside the hut. Later, a very drunk Patty is shown going into the water. When Richard and Emmeline awaken the next day, they go around looking for Patty. After searching for a long time, they finally find him, laying on the ground, hugging the barrel of rum. When they turn him to look at his face, they realize that he's dead. Full of sorrow, the children return to their safe hideout. Richard tries to console Emmeline as she cries. With tears in her eyes, Emmeline begs Richard to take her away from that place. Thus, the next day, Richard and Emmeline put their belongings into their boat and go to a different island located nearby. Days turn to months and months turn to years. The children grow up into teenagers on the island. On Christmas, Richard brings Emmeline pearls. This makes Emmeline very happy and she kisses Richard for the first time. One day, while bathing in a pond, Emmeline notices herself bleeding. Not having any knowledge about menstruation cycles, Emmeline freaks out and calls Richard for help. Richard immediately rushes to Emmeline. However, when he reaches her, Emmeline forbids him from coming closer. Richard notices the blood and asks Emmeline how she hurt herself. Emmeline tells him that she's fine and makes him leave. Richard asks Emmeline to let him see how she hurt herself, but Emmeline ignores him. This infuriates Richard. He tells Emmeline that it's unfair of her to keep secrets from him. He tells her that she has changed and storms away. The next day, Richard catches Emmeline looking at his body. He tells Emmeline that she's been acting weird lately. The two later watch the sunset together. Richard asks Emmeline if she ever wonders what really happened to Patty. Disturbed, Emmeline says she doesn't want to talk about it and leaves. Later, while having dinner, Richard tells Emmeline that there are so many questions in his mind about nature which he wants answers to. While the two are playing around in their hut, Richard and Emmeline hear the sound of distant drumming. They freeze after hearing the sound. Richard wonders what the sound could be, but he tells Emmeline that he wouldn't dare venture into the other side of the island to find out since it could be the boogeyman. One day, Emmeline gives in to her curiosity and goes to the other side of the island where the sounds used to come from.
YouTube Premium gives you ad-free videos, mobile downloads, and background play. With it, you also get YouTube Music Premium, a music streaming app that has playlists mixed just...
There, she finds a huge face-like statue, made out of rock. Suddenly, a stream of blood starts dripping down from the statue. Emmeline runs back to her hut and tells Richard about this. She tells him that she has found God on the other side of the island. Richard is infuriated. He tells Emmeline that she made a great mistake by venturing into the forbidden areas. Emmeline tells him that the other side is not dangerous. She tells him that she saw the face of God, and she knows because she saw him bleed, just like Jesus. Richard doesn't buy this and tells Emmeline to be careful. That night, Emmeline has a nightmare in which Richard dies after eating some wild berries. She wakes up, disturbed, and starts looking for Richard. Richard comes to her and comforts her. Emmeline asks him to promise her that he will never leave her alone. Richard hugs her and promises. Emmeline kisses Richard, but when Richard starts feeling her up, Emmeline stops him and moves away. Later that night, while Emmeline is sleeping, Richard touches her. Emmeline wakes up and rudely sends Richard away. The next morning, Emmeline tries to talk to Richard, but Richard ignores her. Emmeline follows him as he walks off towards the shore and plays with himself. Emmeline calls his name, but Richard yells at her and tells her to leave. Later, a ship comes sailing near the island. Richard starts waving to it excitedly and runs towards the signal to light it. However, he fails to reach the signal in time and the ship leaves. He notices that Emmeline had been close to the signal all along and asks why she didn't light the signal. Emmeline ignores him, which makes him even angrier. Enraged, Richard declares that he'll go home without Emmeline. He builds a raft out of straw and bamboo sticks and takes it into the ocean. Emmeline watches with a grin as the raft collapses and Richard returns. She taunts him and tells him that he'll never be able to make something strong enough to carry him home. As a comeback, Richard tells Emmeline that she has started to look funny now. Emmeline throws a coconut at Richard, which hits him on the head. She rushes to him as he collapses and apologizes. Richard slaps her across the face and says he wishes she was dead. After this, Richard returns to the hut and throws all of Emmeline's belongings out of the hut. Alarmed, Emmeline asks him what he's doing. He tells her that he's the one who built the hut and he would no longer let Emmeline live in it. A couple of days pass with Emmeline staying outside, even in strong winds and storms, while Richard peacefully enjoys the comfort of his hut. One day, Emmeline accidentally steps on a poisonous fish. This makes her weak. Richard notices her deteriorating health and goes to check on her. Realization dawns on him that if he ever lost Emmeline, he would be stuck on the island all alone. He begs Emmeline to stay strong and stay with him. Emmeline tells him to take her to God. Richard carries her to the other side of the island and lays her in front of the stone statue. With teary eyes, he says he didn't mean it when he said he wishes Emmeline were dead and begs God to save her. After some time, Emmeline moves and opens her eyes. Richard sighs in relief and asks her how she is. Emmeline asks Richard if he's still mad at her. Richard tells her that he isn't mad, he's only afraid of losing her. After this incident, the bond between the two strengthens. While they're eating fruits together, Richard and Emmeline start fooling around. They notice how their bodies change because of their proximity. They are confused by the strange things they're feeling. They let their instincts guide them and thus make love to each other for the first time. This discovery changes their days. Now the two start spending their lives on the island like lovebirds. After some time, Richard notices that Emmeline's appetite has increased. He comments on this and tells Emmeline that if she continues this, she will become fat. However, Emmeline seems to have no control over her hunger. Richard notices Emmeline's behavior and body changing. One day, he awakens to see Emmeline throwing up. In the following days, Emmeline also loses interest in lovemaking. This saddens Richard. He asks Emmeline if she has stopped loving him. Emmeline tells him that she does love him, but it has started to hurt. She tells Richard that he can also feel her body change. With this, she takes Richard's hand and places it on her belly. Richard senses some movement inside and gets shocked. We're then taken ahead in time where Emmeline now has a visible baby bump. Richard awakens one day to see that Emmeline isn't in the hut. He gets worried and starts wandering around the island.
Looking at us. Is that a chicken?
While looking for her, Richard goes over
There's
to the
somebody
forbidden
eating
part
a
of the
chicken.
island. There, he sees the drumming jungle dwellers for the first time. They dance around the fire with peculiar sticks and tools in hand. As they're dancing, one of them is laid down in front of the stone statue and sacrificed for their deity. Richard is horrified by this. He turns and runs as fast as he can until he reaches the safer parts. When Richard returns, he hears Emmeline's screams. He follows them to see Emmeline, who's now experiencing labor pains. Richard tries to comfort Emmeline as she moves and squirms in pain. The agony finally stops after a while and Emmeline's baby is born. The couple is shocked upon the little one's arrival since nature's phenomena was unknown to them. The couple cradles the baby and brings it back to their hut. Later that day, the couple sits in front of the crying baby, wondering what it wants. When the baby starts suckling on Richard's finger, Richard tells Emmeline that the baby must be hungry. Thus the two start trying to feed it fruits and coconut juice, but the baby continues crying.
The kitty. She said, what the hell, not pregnant that fast? I mean, like, it said all that time went by, so.
To console the baby, Emmeline cradles it to her chest, and that's how she discovers what the baby actually wants. The couple names their child Patty and they all start living a happy life as a family. Patty soon grows up into a toddler. While walking with Patty and Richard on the shore, Emmeline asks Richard if he remembers their snowball fights. After saying this, Emmeline smears mud on Richard's arm. She tells him that it's freezing just like the snowballs they used to play with. The family starts playing around in the mud. A moment later, they see a ship approaching. but none of them go to light the signal, indicating that they are content with this life and consider the island their home. Arthur, now old with age, is seen on the ship. It's revealed that he's been out on the sea, looking for Richard and Emmeline for a very long time. He watches the family as it goes back, covered in mud, and says that they can't be Richard and Emmeline. One day, Emmeline requests Richard to take her back to the place where they used to live with the older Patty before he died. Richard takes the boat out and takes his family to the island they first used to live on. When they reach the island, memories come back to Emmeline and she refuses to go further inside. Richard tells her to wait and goes to get bananas. While Emmeline is waiting for Richard near the boat, Patty picks a few berries and puts them in the boat. Emmeline gets in the boat with Patty after a while and starts rowing the boat around near the island. Patty grabs one of the oars and throws it down into the water. Emmeline panics. She tries to get the oar, but it's far out of reach. Richard returns with the bananas and notices the oar. He jumps into the water and grabs the oar. As he's swimming to the boat after this, a shark starts nearing him. Richard freaks out and starts swimming hastily. Emmeline throws the other oar at the shark and Richard gets into the boat with the one in his hand. They realize a bit too late that throwing the oar was a mistake. The shark keeps circling their boat and they're not able to get to the oar. Hence their boat starts drifting away. They spend some time in the boat, wondering how they will get to the island. Emmeline sees Patty eating the berries he had brought. She freaks out after looking at them since they were the berries the older Patty had warned them not to eat. Emmeline makes Patty spit the berries out, but Patty had already swallowed a few of them. Later that day, Patty starts closing his eyes. The couple gets worried and tells him not to sleep since to them, once he slept after eating the never wake up berries, they would lose him. Not having any other solution to their problem, Richard grabs the rest of the berries and gives a few to Emmeline. Emmeline gets the hint and takes them from him. Both of them swallow the berries and lie together with Patty in their arms. On his ship, Arthur is told by his crewmates that a boat has been sighted. Arthur tells his crewmates to immediately steer his ship towards the boat. He approaches Richard and Emmeline's boat and checks to see if they are alive. Fortunately, these berries were not poisonous. The family was only sleeping. Thus, the children are reunited with Arthur after several years and the movie ends. Thank you so much for watching.
You know what's crazy? It's a whole nother one. The little boy ended up getting stuck on the same fucking island. Men can make women around him feel the same pleasure as him. What the fuck? What? Huh? What? What? It's dark. Yeah, it's dark. You said it's dark? Mm. Just didn't ask your sister to get you no water.
Since I basically know how to make everything better, here's some advice I would like Huntington.
70 movies
They should change their
or
button.
80
There's a button down here.
Shit, I don't know. Neither.
Have honey right now. Over
That's
here.
old.
This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain an action, comedy, and horror film called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. In the whole...
Bitcoin, my nigga.
Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a post-apocalyptic science fiction series called The 100. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Several years in the future, the Earth faces a devastating nuclear apocalypse. A blast of radiation kills most humans and animals and wipes out all kinds of life from the Earth's surface. The survivors fly to the space stations orbiting the Earth that were then made for the purpose of space exploration. Currently, it is 97 years after the apocalypse. The space stations have joined hands to become one big civilization called the Ark. The living situation on Ark is not ideal because of the population growth and limited resources. The people believe that after 100 years, humans can return home to the ground. Although there are only 3 years left for the big day, the limited resources threaten the life of the citizens of the Ark. Hence, the Chancellor and the Board of Governors have to follow strict rules to decrease the population immediately. Because of this, any crime on the Ark is punishable by death. Except, if someone under 18 is found guilty, they are locked up in a box-like prison. One of such prisoners is Clark Griffin. She is the daughter of the Chief Medical Officer, Abby, and the Chief Engineer of the Ark, Jake. Since both her parents are on the Board of Governors, she is expected to have privileges, but like any other criminal, she is currently locked up. Suddenly, 2 guards barge in and make her wear a wristband. They forcefully bring her out alongside other prisoners. Abby stops them for a second to tell Clark that everything will be alright. She is about to land on the Earth. It turns out that 100 criminals from the prisons are being sent to Earth's surface. To test its habitability, they could immediately die of radiation or because of the hostile climate, but the group has no choice whatsoever. On the ship, Clark meets her childhood best friend and the son of the Chancellor, Wells. He deliberately committed a small crime to board the ship to accompany her. However, Clark doesn't appreciate the gesture. It turns out that her father is dead, and it is somehow Wells' fault. As the ship lands, a video plays on the monitor of the Chancellor asking them what they should do when they land. They're tasked to make their way to the former Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, which is
Go in your room.
supplies enough
Go in your room.
100 people. The ship soon enters the Earth's atmosphere and lands with a crash. 2 people who had gotten up from their seats die instantly. Finn, the guy who urged them to get up, is still safe. Then we are introduced to the siblings, Bellamy and Octavia. Octavia was hidden under a table by her mother for the first 16 years of her life, because no one is allowed to have a second child on the Ark. Bellamy and Octavia were separated when she was caught, and their mother was floated into space. The brother and sister reunite after months. Bellamy instantly declares herself the leader and opens the door to the ship. As the group stands back in anticipation, they are welcomed by greenery and land filled with vegetation. They run outside to their home for the first time in their lives. As the group celebrates, Clark brings out a map and sees that they have been dropped some miles away from Mount Weather. Finn follows her, interested in what she is doing. Back on the Ark, one of the members of the council named Kane briefs everyone on the condition of the 100. Because of the crash, they have lost all communication with the prisoners and will no longer be able to monitor their location. But because of the wristband, their vital signs are still measurable. They see that 2 people died while landing, but the plausible explanation could not be a blast of radiation and just an accident. Meanwhile, things are starting to get intense on the ground. Clark and Wells want to get to Mount Weather as soon as possible, but the others do not like being ordered around. Bellamy and Octavia go against them and claim that they should go to the mountain and bring back the supplies. They want the privileged to do the work and not the working class. Wells gets into an altercation with a guy named Murphy and hurts his leg before Finn stops the fight. Bellamy tells Octavia that he did something very bad to get on the ship. If the governors find out about it, they will never forgive him, which means they will have to make sure to survive on the ground. Clark also reveals that if they take off their wristbands, people on Ark will think they are dying and will not come looking for them. This is good news for Bellamy, since he can make everyone take off their bands and form a new civilization of his own. After that, Octavia, Finn, Clark, and 2 of their friends, Jasper and Monty, set out to look for the mountain. A few minutes later, they come across an animal and watch it in awe, only to then realize it is mutated and has 2 heads. Ah, it's cute. Meanwhile, on the Ark, Abby finds out that the Chancellor has been shot. She and her team of doctors try their best to save him and use a higher dosage of blood and anesthesia than allowed for a citizen to have. The guards find out that
bro.
Bellamy is responsible for shooting the Chancellor, which explains why he doesn't want the officials coming to the ground. Kane wants to eliminate hundreds of ARC citizens and save only the ones who are contributing to their society. That way, they can increase the expectancy of their space station to 3 years. If more people are not killed, they cannot survive more than 4 months in the current living conditions. Now that he's Deputy Chancellor, he plans to put his idea into action. Meanwhile, the group on the expedition finds a river and jumps into the water. Suddenly, Octavia is attacked by a strange fish and snake-like creature. Jasper jumps to her rescue and saves her, while the others distract the fish. At night, everyone at the camp burns their wristbands at Bellamy's order. He asserts his dominance when Wells tries to stop him. By now, he has become the leader of the 100. At night, Bellamy and his minions forcefully make Wells take his wristband off. Back on the Ark, Kane finds out that Abby used more than the legal amount of blood to save the Chancellor. Using his power as the Deputy Chancellor, he orders her to be floated for the crime. She is taken into the airlock and is seconds away from being sent to space. When the Chancellor arrives and stops them, he pardons her and thanks her for saving his life. On Earth, the team reaches a river. Jasper jumps to the other side and finds an old board showing them the way to Mount Weather. But just then, someone throws a spear at him that hurts him gravely.
Oh
The
my
others run back
God,
to
what
the
the
camp
fuck?
to save their lives. Halfway to the camp, they hear Jasper scream and realize that he is still alive. When they go back to look for him, someone has already taken him away. At the camp, things get heated as Bellamy declares there are no laws or rules. Murphy goes rogue and starts a fight with Wells. They only stop when the other group arrives. Everyone is informed about the dangerous grounders who took Jasper away. They decide to be more careful, but are still adamant about removing the wristbands. The next morning, Clark, Bellamy, Wells, and Murphy go out on a rescue mission looking for Jasper. Since Bellamy has a gun, they hope to be safe from the grounders. Then, we are introduced to a zero-gravity mechanic and Finn's girlfriend, Raven. She finds out that they are not allowing people to visit their close ones in prison. Raven is young, ambitious, and not afraid of anything. When she realizes something is off about the new rule, she makes it her mission to find out what. She secretly breaks into Abby's lab, but is caught on the way. On looking at the screen with the prisoners' vitals, she registers they have been sent to Earth. She also tells a confused Abby that the 100 might be removing the wristbands. This helps Abby to present a theory in the next council meeting. At the end of the meeting, they decide to abstain from taking any decision for 10 more days and to give the 100 a chance to report back. If they cannot communicate even then, they will have to kill more people on the Ark for the others to survive. Back in camp, Octavia meets Monty. Monty is a communications expert who is working to build up connections with the Ark. He is also best friends with Jasper and hopes he will be back soon. Octavia helps him with his task, going against her brother's rule. Meanwhile, the other team continues looking for Jasper and finds a waterfall on the way. Finn and Clark seem to be getting close to each other, which makes Wells jealous. Suddenly, they find Jasper's goggles and realize he is nearby. Eventually, they find him hung from a tree, with his wound treated. Clark almost falls into a trap in front of the tree, but is saved by Bellamy. They bring Jasper down but are attacked by a wild boar just then. Wells kills it with the gun he stole from Bellamy. I liked this scene better when it was a polar bear. Finally, the group has food for the night and has rescued their friend. On the Ark, Abby asks Raven to repair an old escape pod in 9 days, planning to return to the Earth to save the others. Raven agrees, but only if she also gets to go to the Earth with her. At night, the 100